To the other story dominating news headlines today, that's the mixed reaction to Nosiviwe Mapisa-Nqakula's election as National Assembly Speaker. Mapisa-Nqakula won 199 of the 298 votes, with the rival DA candidate winning 82. But her appointment is not without controversy. She's faced several corruption allegations against her in the past and is even under investigation by Parliament itself. Our reporter Lindsay Dentlinger joins me from Cape Town with more details. Hello, Lindsay. So Mapisa-Nqakula, she made her first speech as Speaker. We're going to listen to what she said, but how did she come across?
Sally, she might not be as popular as her predecessor in terms of having all-round support from the opposition benches, but she certainly pledged to work with all opposition parties today, saying that she was not in that position to advance narrow party political interests, that she was going to work and cooperate better with all opposition parties, particularly on matters of national interest. She also made the point that by being the fifth of the sixth National Assembly speakers to be a woman, that it was also a sign and a support that her party had for women empowerment and women's issues. And Sally, she pledged to uphold the integrity of the House, despite this cloud hanging over her, despite controversies during her 10 years as the Defence Minister. And while opposition parties may not be too pleased to have her in that seat when the House resumes business again next week, they certainly have intimated that they will give her a chance. They will accept that olive branch that she is offering them. But let's take a listen to those opening remarks in her first speech to the House after being confirmed as the new Speaker by the Western Cape Judge President John Hlophe.
This is particularly an emotional occasion for me. Seated amongst you in those benches during the proceedings and the elections, I sincerely felt humbled to have been nominated as a candidate for the position of Speaker of this august House. I also felt great pride, both as a member of this House and as a South African, observing the exercise of democracy during these proceedings, with all parties, big and small, fully utilizing the opportunity and space to nominate and vote freely for candidates of their choice for the position of Speaker. It is upon this foundation that Parliament has continued to stand as the foremost custodian and protector of our democracy. It is important that this foundation of true democratic participation should never be compromised, not for personal whim or for narrow party political interest. All our people, represented wholly by the members deployed from various parties in this Parliament, should always feel comfortable that all their interests, however diverse, will have due consideration here and have the confidence in Parliament's role as the last line in the defence of our hard-earned democracy.
And Lindsay, what did opposition parties have to say?
Well, Sally, they don't believe that she is the kind of person of integrity that should hold this all-important position. In fact, some political parties quite upset that, in fact, this is a promotion for her. So even though people seem to think she was axed as Defence Minister because the President was no longer happy with the way she was performing her job, we should point out that the Speaker holds a higher position than a Minister, certainly in pay terms at any rate. And with all the allegations untested, still to be probed, hanging over her head, they just do not feel that she's the person to hold this position. They pointed to the fact that in the past she has at times shown some disdain towards Parliament in terms of them exercising their oversight role and in terms of holding her accountable as a minister. And so they are concerned whether she will be able to hold Parliament to a higher standard to achieve what we know Parliament to have been criticised quite extensively in the past, and more recently at the Zondo Commission of Inquiry, for being accountable, for holding the executive accountable, and for conducting oversight properly. And of course, they're really concerned about how, when she herself is under investigation by Parliament, how that is going to play out in a few weeks' time, when she is then also expected to preside over a matter that involves and questions her own accountability and her own executive authority. So there are concerns from opposition parties. They feel that they've also been dragged into a factional battle of the ANC. We know the EFF abandoned proceedings completely today because they said they wouldn't be party to the kind of politics playing itself out in the ANC and have a candidate foisted upon them. But let's take a listen to what some of those opposition parties had to say after that sitting this afternoon.
Well, there definitely will be conflicts of interest. That's a given. I mean, it's not if they are conflicts, they are conflicts of interest. So I foresee it playing out like this. I foresee her either having to take special leave or being suspended by Parliament while she's investigated, and the Deputy Speaker having to become the acting Speaker as he's been for the last couple of weeks. What you're seeing here is a clear ANC factional battle being played out at the expense of Parliament, and you're going to see chaos in the House, which is exactly what this factional battle wants, because the more factional battles, the more chaos there is in the House, the less we are able to hold ministers to account. And that is exactly what Judge Zondo said the problem was, is that we weren't, as Parliament, holding the executive to account.
We, from the start, opposed the nomination. And in her speech now, she just referred to say that we must protect the integrity of the House. The irony is that she, by sitting in that chair, is violating the integrity of the House, because when she was the minister, she misused the position by taking members of the Executive Council from the ANC to Zimbabwe on taxpayers' money and the military plane. So I didn't hear anything of, I will be impartial, I will protect the rights of all political parties because I am the Speaker now. That's what I wanted to hear. But I think it sums it quite well. When she was nominated and the Judge President was asked whether she accepts the nomination, not far from my side sits the Minister of Police, and he said, with an interjection, she has no option.
Well, we indicated even before the vote that we were not comfortable with the nomination of former Minister Nqakula. And I'll leave it at that for now, because the House has spoken and we have to recognize and respect the democratic process of the House. We just hope that the Speaker, the new Speaker now, will act with the kind of integrity she spoke about, and that we will also give her our fullest cooperation as a political party, because we are here to ensure that Parliament functions as a respectable institution in the country, and also that parliamentarians do their job of ensuring that we represent adequately the millions of people out there who are in dire need, poverty, inequality, unemployment, and this is our responsibility. Stop corruption, and the Speaker must lead from the front in that regard.
So, Lindsay, it sounds like the opposition is sort of has her on probation. They're watching to see how she's going to perform in her new role as Speaker. But is there likely to be any action outside of Parliament? I'm thinking, is there any avenue for a court challenge? Are any opposition or civil society organisations planning a really serious challenge? We have seen some in the run-up, but is there more coming, possibly?
As you pointed out, Sally, we did see an indication yesterday from a civil organisation that threatened to take further action if the election proceeded today and she was elected. So that is a wait and see to see what could really be done about that. But you know that the courts are loath to interfere in a legislative process, particularly as far as a vote is concerned. And as far as opposition parties go, I don't expect them to launch any type of legal challenge outside of the legislature, but certainly, Sally, and you would have heard Natasha Matsone there of the DA alluding to the fact that when it does come to a matter of a conflict of interest that involves her former portfolio as a defence minister, and we're likely to see that come up in the coming weeks when Parliament's joint committees on defence completes their probe into allegations against the former defence minister, how that's going to be treated. We can probably expect that they will call for her to recuse herself when that report gets discussed, for her deputy to take the chair on that day. And then, of course, Sally, there are matters that already involve the courts in terms of, for example, the judgment on the public protector and the Western Cape High Court finding that some of those rules that would guide the process to conduct an inquiry to be unfair. And we understand that Parliament intends to appeal that finding, that court judgment. So whether the new Speaker will hold that line of her predecessor and agree with legal advice to appeal that, for example, we know that's one of the most contentious issues Parliament is grappling with at this time. That remains to be seen, and I'm sure that if she doesn't hold that line, that she can probably expect some challenges from within. So I think the real test right now is how she's going to proceed with matters already before the House, issues such as the amendment of Section 25 of the Constitution. We know already that political parties, they are not seeing eye to eye, and it's appearing rather unlikely that they are going to reach consensus on amending the Constitution. So it's big, meaty matters like that, Sally, that I think all eyes are going to be on the Speaker as to whether she continues with the line of her predecessor as to how these matters have been handled up to date, or whether she's going to change tack completely and maybe upset the apple cart somewhat. So while at this time we don't expect to see, certainly from within political parties, to challenge her appointment today, we don't know what might come from civil organizations and what weight that might hold in the courts.
Thank you so much. That is our reporter in Cape Town, Lindsay Dentlinger.